An Al Jazeera special report. In crisis again. Iraq under siege.
The United States has already sent troops in to help Iraq. About 160 arrived in Baghdad over the weekend. Another 100 are stationed outside of Iraq, helping with security. Any new U.S. involvement there makes some Americans uncomfortable or nervous. Jonathan Betts is here with that part of the story. Jonathan?
Yeah, John, a lot of Americans uncomfortable about these recent developments. Iraq is now facing its worst threat since U.S. combat forces left in 2011. It's thrust the country back into Americans' minds when so many are just trying to move on.
The U.S. left Iraq, but the violence didn't end. Now many fear America's job is not quite yet done. Especially painful for those who've already lost so much, like Karen Neverett Bell.
There are times where I feel like, well, look at all these lives have been lost. What were we there for in the first place?
Her husband, Marine Staff Sergeant Vincent Bell, served 3 tours in Iraq. He died in Afghanistan in 2011.
It's really hard to jump on board with what's going on in another country when there's so many issues on the home front.
The president made promises.
We will not be sending U.S. troops back into combat in Iraq.
But U.S. ships and forces are on the way. And some are calling for airstrikes and stepped-up military action.
Unfortunately, our worst fears have been realized.
In 9 years in Iraq, nearly 4,500 Americans died. The war cost the U.S. more than $1 trillion. Polls suggest very few Americans seem to have the appetite to go back.
All over the country, people are concerned. They're on high alert. Families are afraid that this might be a redeployment.
Among some of those who've served, they're proud of their work and willing to help to a limit.
We don't have a row in front. We should assist them from the back.
It's deeply personal for Iraqis like Sarma Al-Mukhtar. He fled with his family in 2002 and now works at a Michigan restaurant.
I just thank God, like, I'm here, my family is here. But I feel bad for my cousins. They're all over there.
Already one cousin died in a bombing last month, among tens of thousands who've been killed over the years, in a country facing more violence. While those weary from war hope Iraq is now somebody else's fight.
I feel that we've supported as much as we could.
Republican leaders today said they're worried this meltdown in Iraq could soon be seen in Afghanistan and hope this encourages the president to reverse the decision to pull out entirely of Afghanistan, John, within the next 3 years.
All right, Jonathan Betts, thank you. And joining us now is Matthew Pilak, the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Team Rubicon. Matt deployed to Iraq with the Army in 2004. Matthew, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
What's your reaction to what's going on in Iraq today?
It's a mix of frustration, confusion, and also I think a lot of people sort of expected this to happen at some point. A lot of people were saying, oh, Iraq's going to fall apart at some point. Just no one really prepared for it. So I think there's a lot of different emotions.
When you talk to your friends about this, what do they say?
I think everyone's sort of in the same boat. Everyone wants to be able to do something to stop what's going on. Everyone wishes that the Maliki government would have sort of gotten its act together a lot sooner so that the sacrifices that we all made as soldiers wouldn't necessarily be in vain.
Yeah.
And if anyone, I think we blame President Maliki for that, his inability to form a bipartisan or tripartisan government.
Was there any way to control? I mean, did we ever think that there was any way to control Maliki when you were there?
That wasn't really my expertise. As an infantryman, I just did what my commanders told me to do, and that was go out and quote unquote find the bad guys. And we conducted patrols. We trained the Iraqi army. We followed our orders, and we made Iraq a more secure place in the hopes that the newly formed government was going to follow suit behind us.
You lost friends, I assume, and others were injured. You think of those people at this time?
I think of those people every day, regardless of whether I'm thinking about Iraq or not. That was a time in our lives that it changed us forever. And I think a lot of my fellow veterans wouldn't trade that experience for anything. While at the same time, it's unfortunate that happened to our brothers and sisters.
We've talked about Team Rubicon before in this program, but can you tell us a little bit about Team Rubicon and what people like you are doing now that you're back and you're still working to help people? Tell us.
So what Team Rubicon does is take military veterans and pair them up with first responders to respond to natural disasters in the U.S. and around the world. And this allows military veterans to use their skills and abilities learned in the military, how to handle crisis situations, small unit leadership, and allow them to put that to work on the ground, mostly here in the United States. You see the tornadoes that just tore across Nebraska, floods in South Dakota. Military veterans have unique skills that lend themselves to these situations to stabilize them, act as leaders in their community, and to be able to help Americans get back in their homes, get back on their feet. We do a lot of sort of manual labor, debris clearing, shoveling mud out of houses, a lot of dirty work, but work that veterans want to do. And it allows veterans, through doing this work, to be part of a team again, and to be part of a team with other veterans, to talk about their experiences, and to have something that we never had really in the last 12 years, and that's a clear-cut mission. A lot of veterans are frustrated, I think, as a result of 12 years of war without a clear idea of who the enemy was, since no one wore uniforms. Now we're at home, we can use our skills, and the mission's very apparent. It's very simple, and it's a good feeling, particularly when you get to work next to your brother and sister veterans to accomplish a mission and make America a stronger place.
Clearly, your service continues long after the war. Matthew Pilak, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis have left their homes, and UN officials warned today that countries neighboring Iraq could soon be overwhelmed with Iraqi refugees. Hoda Abdelhamid reports.
It's not difficult to spot displaced Iraqis these days. They usually are stranded by the side of the road, near a checkpoint, waiting for permission to get into the Kurdish region. And with the ever-widening conflict, more and more people are heading north. These are the newest arrivals, straight from Tel Afar, the latest town to fall into the hands of the Sunni rebels. They are from the Turkmen minority. This is not their fight.
We left because of the fighting. I don't want to stay in Erbil. I'm trying to reach my daughter in Kirkuk. Until now, they're not allowing us to get through this checkpoint. They tell us to go through another way. But where?
It's a question many of these displaced Iraqis ask, as it appears that Kurdish authorities are overwhelmed by the daily influx. When you travel throughout this region, you can't help but notice the amount of people on the move trying to come in from all directions. Now, the reason they come here is, of course, for safety, but also because this is the only place in the entire country where there's no sectarianism. We reached the outskirts of Sulaymaniyah in the east. Again, the same queues, long waits, and exhausted faces. They are mostly Sunnis. They come from Tikrit, Salahuddin, Fallujah, and beyond. This group of young men arrived from Samarra. They had to first go through Iraqi army positions and then through the Sunni rebel ones.
We don't know what will happen. We are living the moment, not knowing what tomorrow will bring. People want to live. The roads are blocked everywhere. If you make it out, you cannot return home anymore. People are sleeping on the floor. Please find us a solution.
The swift spread of fighters from the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant and Sunni rebels along the Kurdish border is the most serious threat to the region since the US-led invasion in 2003. Security is a big concern, and Kurdish authorities admit they need to impose restrictions.
We have to take security procedures for the displaced people. We want to help on a humanitarian level, but we need to control their entry. We have to protect our area.
These men were granted a renewable one-week permit, but not everyone makes it in.
We've been here since 6 a.m, but they won't let us in. They didn't give us any hope. They told us to leave.
Abu Muhammad did not want to go to a transit camp set up on the edge of the Kurdish region. He preferred to return to his home back in Mosul, despite all the risks. Hoda Abdelhamid, Al Jazeera, in the Kurdish region of Iraq.
And joining us now to talk about the role of social media in this conflict is Maytha Al-Hassan. She is the co-editor of Demanding Dignity, Young Voices from the Front Lines of the Arab Revolutions. Maytha, welcome. How is social media being used in the crisis in Iraq?
Well, Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant has been using Twitter and Facebook, but also this application called the Dawn of Glad Tidings. Excuse me for that. They usually go by Dawn. They've been using these media tools to disseminate not only their message, to brand their concepts, and some writers like the Atlantic's Burger feel like they use these media outlets to recruit new fighters.
So they can be used as propaganda tools. So how's that different from the Arab Revolution back in 2003?
Well, you know, I've actually seen some similar trends. For example, there has been the dissemination of imagery that is unverified, that is very, very graphic, meant to trigger responses either from the international community or from local community members. For example, on Sunday we saw this passing around through social media, this image of the mass execution of Shia fighters in the Iraqi security forces. I'm sure your viewers are familiar with this image that has been unverified, but we saw something similar in Syria when the rebels wanted, not just the rebels, but Jabhat al-Nusra, other groups that opposed the Assad regime, they also sent out images, very graphic, gruesome, violent images throughout the media arena, just to, you know, to get their message out, and in some cases, especially in Syria, to try to trigger a response from the international community to get either some sort of assistance in the humanitarian fight or to also inspire military intervention.
You know, some people hailed social media as this, as a way to help free people around the world. And it seems that as social media has grown and things have changed, that there's also another side to that. So how do social media companies handle this?
So this has been kind of a sticky issue for social media companies, because once you start blocking accounts, like Twitter has done for some of the accounts that they have tracked back to ISIL or ISIS, whatever they're calling themselves these days. And Facebook has also suspended and blocked certain pages. Google Play got rid of that app that I mentioned to you, the Dawn app. It's been tricky, like I said, because once you start stepping on the boundaries of free speech, at what length do you define what is appropriate
even
and proper
if it's wrong.
Media? Exactly. Even if it's wrong, and who's to say if it's wrong?
Yeah. Well, Maytha Al-Hassan, we appreciate your insight. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Now, tonight's freeze frame captures the mood of many in Iraq. New Iraqi army volunteers training at a military base. They just joined the force. They're preparing to fight rebels and defend Baghdad if necessary. America Tonight with Joey Chen is coming up next. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow, 11 o'clock, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. We'll see you then.